when you walk into a facility, it is rare to get total honesty from somebody who is failing. So the first thing I look for in a facility is paper towels. Because if you're out of paper towels, you're probably close to shutting the doors.
Green rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!
Welcome back to the Money Talks Podcast. It's the first episode of day 2, and I am joined with Clovis McCary and JJ Crossan. Clovis, a Texas-born cultivation expert known for designing some of the cleanest, most efficient grow facilities in the cannabis industry. He's a consultant for advanced nutrients. He's an outspoken advocate for smarter cannabis laws and a pioneer in treating cultivation like precision engineering. And JJ, I just met you 10 minutes ago and didn't know you were going to be on the podcast, so I don't have a sexy bio for you, but I'm sure you do awesome things too.
I appreciate it. Yes, appreciate that.
Thank you guys for having me, man. How you feeling?
Good, thank you.
Nice.
Thank
And
you.
JJ, tell me a little bit about your background, because I feel bad I don't have a bio.
Yeah, no worries,
for you.
man. It's all good. I appreciate letting me jump on. Clovis, thanks for the invite. And yeah, I've been in the space 24 years. California born and raised. The year I turned 18 was the first year you could vote for medical marijuana. I voted, it passed. I moved to Northern California, grew dreadlocks, did outdoor and depths for about 14 years until the price started dropping. I moved back to Southern California where I was born and raised. Started managing dispensaries, started doing some consulting, building, and ended up working for Green Coast Hydroponics, helped build that chain up until they were able to sell. At that point, I then went to work for Lux and Athena and helped spin up that company. Back in April, left there, and just recently in the last couple months joined the advanced team. So I'm out in the international market doing a bunch of consulting, working on GMP, out there in the cultivation sites, working with the growers one-on-one, just, teaching them some of the tips and tricks and trade secrets that I've learned over my 24 years.
Wow, amazing. I feel like that wasn't your first time giving that. That was very precise.
It came out real good, didn't it? He's like, I know what I'm about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And Clovis, you have a bit of a different background because your roots are in Texas. So tell me about your upbringing in Texas. And
So my background was a petroleum engineer. So I did chromatology and lithology analysis in the oil field for a long time. And one day I was sitting offshore on a rig and I was deeply thinking, and I thought, Clovis, you either have to come to terms with being real weird or you need to go get another job. So at that point I decided to get on a boat and go back in, and it was the best decision I ever made. I'll never forget, my partner at the other company called me and he heard the seatbelt ding, ding, ding. He goes, "Are you in your car?"
How long at a time would you be spending on a boat?
So I was a field supervisor, so typically they do it as like a 2-week schedule, but as the field supervisor, I was from beginning of hole to end of hole. So sometimes it was 3 months, sometimes it was 3 weeks. Most of the time it was 3 months. Yeah, it was inland offshore off of Louisiana out of Laplace.
You were on one of those rigs?
Yeah.
That just sits in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. For 3 months at a time?
Yeah.
Is it like the movie Armageddon, like what they were, or kind of similar?
No, but it is a lot like the movie Deepwater, the Deepwater Horizons event. That was a pretty good portrayal of what it's like, all of the mud hands down on the shakers. Those were all the people that died because they were at the initial point of explosion there.
Wow.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting career. I loved it. It was a great stepping stone into the things I moved on to after that. But I do not miss it. A lot of people are like, "Oh, do you miss the oil field?" Absolutely not.
So what were some of the personalities that you worked with? What were the personality types?
Well, so great that you ask. Actually, one of the things that I came across in the oil field a lot was an egotistical personality. And it's equally something I deal with here in cannabis. People's egos get in the way far too often of good business. So that was actually something that I learned early on, how to manage someone's ego to not hurt it while still getting to where we want it to be. And that's something I utilize very heavily here in the cannabis industry because our growers have some egos. I mean, we've got cups out there called Ego Clash for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. So when did you guys first start to feel like you were maybe experts? You had real expertise in cannabis?
I mean, I won't even use that word right now, right? Because I'm constantly learning things, every few days, every week, especially now with AI and new technology, it's really hard for me to say I'm an expert. I definitely have killed a shitload of mites. I've definitely killed a ton of mold. I've definitely got rooms that had really wonky environments, back online. But do I know everything? Am I an expert? I honestly, that sort of term irks me a little bit, because if you're a master in this, when it's constantly evolving, I don't understand how that could be a real term in this day and age, honestly.
Right, yeah. Over master grower, I would rather be referred to as a pioneer grower, because
legacy grower.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Something else.
Right.
I've been growing weed and selling weed since it was highly illegal in California. I know that's hard to believe, but yes, I've had handcuffs on for the plant. Last time was in 2019. I had 450 lights in the traditional market still. And, I was in there smoking a joint on a Friday morning, and, next thing you know, I see jaws of life on my gate, and, here comes the cops. I'm getting raided, and, luckily, nothing, no name on electrical or on the property. So, I was able to skate away with that for free,
Well, we all seem to make that good decision, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so, that's when I really started pivoting into this more corporate side of cannabis, if you want to call it that.
Right.
Yeah.
What's that transition like, going from the traditional market to corporate cannabis? And did a lot of, what were some of maybe the biggest challenges or growing pains you had to overcome?
I think a lot of it was personal, because obviously I'm so traditional that I was corporate, I barely had a cell phone, right? Now I got 2 screens, a keyboard, cell phones in the holster, cranking away, right? Never thought I was going to be that person. So I think it was really more personal hurdles for me. But the industry, my friends from traditional and legal, in California, it all still really meshes. It's all still really one. So it wasn't really a big deal,
Right. And for Clovis, how did what you learned in the oil world, the oil industry, did anything translate to the cannabis industry?
So absolutely. Mass spectrometry is basically our COA testing. So, for understanding testing and how to do that was something I was very familiar with. And to answer your question, how did I know that I was operating at a high level? I was operating as a CEO of a vertical establishment. So we had a grow, processing, dispensaries. And during that time, I met with lots of my peers throughout the industry, and I realized that, maybe some of the things I said were a little more refined. Not necessarily better, but more refined, because I'd already worked with chromatology through, 15 years of work. So when it come to talking about what a COA was actually trying to tell us, or what that actually entailed, it really helped me be able to define a COA to a dispensary owner I was trying to sell. So that sales perspective was really enhanced by having an inherent understanding of the processes that were used to get that data.
Awesome. So when you guys walk into a grow today, what's the first thing what's the first thing you're looking for? Or the first thing that you notice maybe?
First thing I'm looking for is the number of employees, honestly. If we're in a hall, or you just bringing me in through your onboarding, and there's employees shuffling around and stuff, it's a red flag, honestly. A lot of these companies I see way more employees than are currently needed. I see the trend being is they like to hire a ton of cheap labor instead of hiring a bunch of all-stars, which I do see a few brands do, and that model is very successful. But the ownership has to be willing to break bread with those all-stars, because you're not going to get a all-star player on your team at $18 or $20 an hour. You're going to have to incentivize these guys. They've been in the industry a long time, so they know what they're worth, and you got to incentivize them. And there's very few facilities using that model, but those guys, I see those models are typically 1 guy per 100 lights. And then on reset days and chop days, they might bring in a crew, but literally 1 guy per 100 lights. I can walk and do a tour in certain buildings and never see an employee. Wow. And then I go to other buildings, and there's people running around everywhere.
Dicking around.
And I'm no wonder these guys are in the red,
Yeah.
So that's my number one I look for. and the list goes on and on from there.
Gotcha. What
Yeah,
about you?
so my number one is going to be different than most people's number one. And I'm going to explain why first. When you walk into a facility, it is rare to get total honesty from somebody who is failing. So the first thing I look for in a facility is paper towels. Because if you're out of paper towels, you're probably close to shutting the doors. And I have found that to be an absolute fact everywhere I've been. If I've used the restroom in a grow and there was no paper towels in the restroom, I know that grow is closed in 60 days. It's just one of the things that I picked up along the way, and it's been very, very consistent. If there's paper towels in the grow, they're doing all right. If there is no paper products that are disposable like that, then they're so short on money that they've already started cutting back, and they're to the end.
Oh man, I mean that should be the last thing you cut back on. But so people were just drying their hands on their
right, and now we're talking
jeans?
about contamination issues. You know, how can you be GACP if every employee doesn't wash their hands when they leave, or so on and so forth? So yeah, it's really a telling thing, even though it's incredibly minor and not what something everyone ever looks like.
You talk about there's a lot of ego in this industry. How tough are those conversations when you're talking to someone who might be in the red, who might be in denial? Like, how tough is it to?
Those are really tough conversations. I was thinking that as he said that, I'm just like, all these egos that we deal with, you know, you literally have to have baby gloves on, you know.
Seriously.
If you're not really good with people, you know, almost like therapists, right? You know, I work as like a mediator between ownership and the cultivation. The cultivation guys click with me right away. They're like, yep, he's a grower, he's me. And then I actually have enough, like, I put myself together enough where I can go sit with the C-suites as well. So I can sort of like be that bridge for that company where sometimes the grower and the owners are just button heads, right? But I can get in there and say, hey man, like if you really did give this guy this one or two tools that he's looking for, he could really give you what you're actually, you know, looking for. And without me, that third outside, you know, voice, that would never get accomplished. They would just be like, no, you don't really need that. You can give me what I want without that.
Right.
But then they hear some fresh set of eyes in there and it's giving them the same thing. They're like, okay, I can make that decision. And then I have owners where they're like, man, could you get my guys to do X, Y, or Z? And I'm like, sure. Go have a conversation with the guys, you know, keep it real. Our new 8th gen product that we're just launching, you know, here at MJ is very exciting. You know, we have like a new version of Overdrive. We have an updated version of Big Bud. Our new bags are a 2-part, so instead of like a 3-part bag system, it's only 2. You know, the quality is crazy. It's all micronized. It's chelated. So I'm really pumped about that. That's with us personally at Advanced. And then the other things in the industry that I'm really stoked on, obviously I think everybody else is as well, is like the under canopies and playing around with like far reds and the Emerson effect.
Ooh. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that, the under canopies, and how like popular they've become over the last couple of years?
Yeah. I will say too, if you have a safe full of product right now, under canopies or increasing your yields by 20 or 30% is not what you need. You need to get rid of that stuff in the vault prior. But if you're one of those companies that can't grow enough and you don't want to, you know, get the money to do a new building, take the time to build it out, this, that, the other, you can add under canopy lighting and increase your returns by another 20 or 30%.
Right, at a very low rehab cost, right.
Yeah.
With rebates, you can get them probably like $17 a 4-foot bar, right, in California. It's very, very cheap to give you, you know, another 20% in your yield without adding another room, a building, anything like that. I mean, it's the only way you can add 20% more to your bottom line.
I'm curious why anyone would be hesitant to go under canopies. It seems like every every like respected grower kind of knows that.
Yeah, I think the only time I see people really typically shy away from it is in 2 scenarios. Either A, they're not necessarily dialed in the way they would like to be, or B, they have electrical constraints that hinder them from being able to do it. You know, if you only have 600 amps and you're running 550 right now, maybe under canopy is not for you.
Yeah, if you were built out, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, right, even 5 years ago, you probably maxed that power at that building back then. So now that under canopies are out, you don't have the extra load to add them.
Right. Or maybe you don't have the latent load within your HVAC to incorporate those BTUs as well. So there are a couple of engineering things that could hinder you from making it happen. But I think inevitably, at the end of the day, the answer looks like this. Yes, it's financially valuable. Yes, there's an ROI associated with it that makes sense.
Nice. What are some other lighting technologies that you think everyone should be talking about in the industry?
Full spectrum tuning. So let's circle back to the Emerson effect, like you mentioned a moment ago. So utilizing different spectrums of the light to stress the plant in a way that we want to drive it. I believe that inevitably is the best plant you can grow. So if we start the day with, say, a bluer spectrum that's kind of initiating some of those phases, and then end the day with a far red, that is necessarily the Emerson effect. That's what it is. It's utilizing different light spectrums to stress the plant without over stressing the plant. Because I used to tell people all the time that the least stressed plant you can grow is the best plant. And I know now that that's not necessarily true. We do want to cause some stress within that plant to make it more resilient or to beef it up.
Certain times there's like little tricks that you want to pull off, right? And you can pull those off by, stressing the plant environmentally, right. Whether that means temperature, light intensity, or even irrigation strategy, right? You can stack an EC really high and stress the plant out with a bunch of nutrient at the root zone and get some of these different types of tricks out of the plant. And there's 3 or 4 times throughout a cycle that you want to hit these little cues, and as long as you hit them at the right times, you will see a lot tighter internodal stacking, a lot higher yields,
maybe bigger bulking,
a lot higher THC in your COAs and terpenes.
Have you guys heard of the technology? Because I was talking to someone yesterday where they track the clicks of a plant, and then they like have a sound wave, and like they're communicating with the plant through the clicks. I had just heard about it.
I spoke with a gentleman about that in another facility or at St. Louis, and he's using wavelengths to increase yield.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay away from that science. I won't be utilizing that in my facility.
Yeah, I've never had any experience with it. It sounds very interesting, though, for sure.
Yeah, it was my first time even hearing about that.
He mentioned to me when we spoke, I think it was like a 30 or 40% increase with sound wave only by just adding wavelengths that were specific. He felt
I had a product called BioWave back in the day. Anybody who's been in this industry 20 years ago has probably saw it here at MJ decades ago. But it was literally, this little metal thing, you turn it on, strap it to the wall in the middle of your room, and it was supposed to sound waves, keep bugs away, increase yields, this, that, the other. All I ever noticed, honestly, was like the increase in my power bill. That was it.
Yeah.
So I still got nights, I still had PM in there, there were still problems. So yeah, the only thing that I noticed it did was, run my power bill up a little. That was it.
So if I say I want to be a commercial cultivator, I want to start tomorrow, I've got an okay amount of capital, what's like the first piece of advice you'd give me?
Reach out to an advanced nutrients rep.
For real.
You need to find an advanced nutrients rep. Find one you like, obviously. Find one you trust, you respect their opinion, and then listen to that person and not 20 different people. Because the reality is if you listen to 20 different people, 5 of those people could be offering you great advice for their scenario, but it could be completely irrelevant for your scenario.
Well, there's a million ways to get to the end goal in this industry, right? And so there's not one real right or wrong way, but if you start going to the hydro store, I'll use this analogy. You go to one guy's counter one day and ask him some things. He's going to give you his bit of information. 2 days or next week, you go back to buy your next little things you need, and you end up getting rung up by another guy. Ask him a few questions. It's going to be completely different, right? So now you're like leaving the store more confused than actually on it. So if you are going to tap in and start listening to somebody, you got to sort of lock in with that
group.
Be
consistent.
And work with that. Work with that company and that team, Autumn from Cultivo, she's amazing.
Shout out to Autumn.
She does a lot of great design, and things like that. So if you were someone getting into it, I would almost like really start reaching out to someone on that level. And obviously nutrients and lighting and all that will, sort of trickle down from the top of that pyramid,
Gotcha. And
Yeah, the
advanced
business model
nutrients-
does have to be viable first.
Yeah, you can't just have ideas and be like, I want to grow the best weed in the world. Here's money, make it happen. Like,
We see that, and we watch people, folding all the time, right? I mean, if you're not someone from legacy market or you haven't set up actual distribution channels, I don't know how and why you thought throwing millions of dollars at growing weed was going to be successful. I mean, if you had no out for it, why were you building it to begin with, right?
Bingo. I tell everybody, don't grow weed you can't sell.
that sounds way more simple than it is, but it seems like a lot of people make the mistake of.
It is. To be fair, one of the things outside of cultivation that I consult on quite often is that most cultivations approach their sales when they have a product. And that's your percentage of closing a dispensary the first time through the door is like maybe 5%. And that might even be generous, okay? So the reality is that when you do sales through a cultivation, then the time you actually want to sell them needs to be your second, third, or fourth touch. Definitely not your first, because the first one's not gonna fly. So I found that most people tend to neglect the sales aspect of the business model until they're forced to deal with it. And because of that, they're behind the 8 ball and financial issues arise. And this is the perpetual cycle that takes you to the bottom. So I am always focused on the business plan, get that lined out. How are we going to make our money? And then start following through with the steps.
Interesting. So advanced nutrients, but way before I was in the cannabis industry, I was telling you, I was at a Big Mike party in 2019, and I was like, this company is freaking awesome. So like, what do you attribute the success of advanced nutrients? Because it seems like no matter what happens with the cannabis industry, advanced nutrients will always be successful.
Yeah, so I think the easy one on that one is going to be innovation. Advanced nutrients is focused heavily on R&D because we do know that what we do right now may not be the perfect scenario. We have to learn more, understand that more, and then utilize that information properly. So for me, I definitely think that, innovation is the thing that has kept us here for as long as we are. We have so many products available, and it's almost like a pick your poison type of scenario from our product line, almost to the point of intimidation where it's, should I use this or shouldn't I use this? But the innovation is always there. We want to drive. Our motto is advancing growers through best-in-class products. We want growers to get better. If you want them to get better, you have to understand more. So R&D is always going to be a part of your life.
I would say, why Advanced is still here after 26 years and why it's going to be here another, 50, 60 years is Mike. I met him years and years ago, as I'm sure many of us have. And I've worked for a bunch of big companies and with a bunch. And what I can tell you is the money's never changed him, right? He's the same guy that he was when he was the 19-year-old, 18-year-old trapper. He's still focused highly on cannabis and on the plant itself. I've worked for guys in companies where, they get a certain number in the bank and next thing you know, it's all about how can we get more capital? How can we bring in more market share? And they sort of lose focus on the culture and the plant, And so I know where his head's at as far as the love for the plant and the community. That's why Advanced is here, and that's why we'll always be here, honestly.
Awesome. And, it's interesting too is like, I feel like a lot of people in this industry would call you guys experts, except you guys don't call yourselves experts, which I love. So why are you so passionate about learning and always researching? And why is it important to never, feel like you know everything?
I mean, I'm just one of those curious kids, right? My mom always was like, I would tell you don't touch that, it's hot, and the first thing you do is go and grab it, right? And so for me, I'm always out there just trying to better myself a little bit. Not Kobe crazy, but, I'm trying to just self-improvement, whether it fitness, instructors, certain things like that. And I just try to apply learning something, to my life just as like a good rule of, habit, you know what I mean? And so when you come to these shows, you see new products, new innovation. It's like, if you don't stay up on it, you will get left behind.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I consider myself a student rather than an expert because I feel like when you're no longer a student, you're no longer open to the learning. And I don't ever want to close myself off to something new that could potentially benefit me greater than how I'm already doing it.
Yep.
So that's why I stay a student, because I realize that there are still innovators and pioneers, and we are lucky enough to get to work with them.
Well, in our industry, the analytics in this industry are just now, it's something that's very new, right? So the more analytics, the more data we start collecting and receiving, I'm sure things are going to continue to change. Like back in the day, we used to bend plants, tuck them, do all this crazy shit. Nowadays, you literally set plants in a room and barely touch them.
Yeah. Throw some trellis up and walk out.
Literally. And you get better performance, you get better weight, you have less mold, less
lower labor inputs.
Everything. And no one would have ever thought that. We were always in there tinkering with our plants every day, and now with under canopies, setting these things in there, bro, and just watching them grow.
Right. Put them in the Goldilocks zone and let them eat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Push those buttons those 3 or 4 times throughout, give them those little cues those 3 or 4 times throughout the bloom cycle, and let them do their thing. That's it, man.
It's like when you put a steak on a grill, just let it sit for 5 minutes. If the more you touch it, the more you're gonna screw it up.
100%, bro.
So, last question. First of all, thank you guys so much for sitting down with me.
No, honored you had us here.
No, thank you. Appreciate you, man.
Seriously, and I feel like a lot of people watching this are gonna learn, and this could change someone's life. This could inspire someone.
I hope it does, and I hope if it changed their life, they reach out to myself or JJ.
Yeah,
and let us continue the education that we started right here.
Let's do it. So last question I have, I'm about to interview the boss man, Big Mike. What advice do you have for me who's about to interview Big Mike?
Bro,
as someone who knows him very well,
I mean,
because I've never really talked to him before.
If you interact, the same way you did with us, you're dialed, bro. He's literally one of us. He's one of the guys. He's not like some crazy C-suite, owner guy. Like, he's very humble and down to earth. It's pretty nice, Definitely not a micromanager. He trusts his team. He lets his killers or star players go out on the field and do their job, and mad respect to him for that shit.
Yeah. And that goes back to one of the things I mentioned for cultivation. Mike has empowered his employees to make the best decisions for him, and that's what we do. So I would definitely say,
he's surrounded himself with a bunch of cultivators now, and he's really in tune with what we see out in the world and in the streets and in facilities, and he's really open to making change. And
right.
He's in his 70s, right? I'm 48, so knowing that people at that age are open and not closed off, that's why I love learning, and will never close myself off, because things are going to continue to innovate.
I would say one thing that most people don't realize about Mike is that he is incredibly philanthropic. So he has humanity heroes. He really believes in giving back to people, and
building his guys
for me
up
that gives him that gives him a real human sense that somebody who's not operating in that manner is going to have a hard time acting like that or getting that opinion from me.
Shout out to Big Mike, man.
Shout out to Big Mike.
So for people watching, if they want to contact you guys, learn more about your services, where can they find you?
You can get at me at just JJ Worldwide on IG. You can hit me up, email me, jj@advancednutrients.com. Any of those will work. Check out this podcast, leave comments. I'll make sure to hop in there and follow along. And yeah, man, look forward to running into me at a show. Tap me on the shoulder. I'm always here to talk. Easy.
Yeah, and I'm available on Instagram, LinkedIn. My handles are Canna Clovis, KANNA_Clovis. And then my best recommendation for reaching out to us would be the Advanced Nutrients website. Anybody who has any interest in this at all, know that there is quite a bit of relevant information there. We did product one sheets, material safety data sheets. So we've got a lot of information there on that website that could potentially help you. I would encourage you to interact with it.
Love it. Well,
that's very good advice.
Thank you guys so much again for sitting down with
me.
Ethan, it was
thank
really
you.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys were.
Yeah, I just wrote a rebate check, $500K, call free money. You could change your life in a day.